Welcome to those watching on this morning's live stream. David's just got a new watch in for review. David, you showed it. Yeah, it's not under embargo or anything. You're okay.
It's an old watch, but they still make it, which is surprising to me. I kept asking Breitling, like, can you send me this watch? No. 3 months later, can you send me this watch? No. How about you tell me what you have before I keep asking for all the freaking things you have in your carnet? And then it was either this or the Super Chronoma that has this little clock here that, they have this bracelet.
Oh, yeah, it's the best. The
maybe
sidecars, they called it.
I learned that little clock is also water resistant to 200 meters. Which is really cute. You have this tiny little clock and it says 200 meters on the back. So that's cool. But I got this one instead. And I got this because this is my least favorite of all Breitlings on my least favorite of all straps. So it's quite the journey.
Do you think Breitling would sell? Do you think Breitling would sell me just a little clock?
They do.
For you, yes. But you have to wear it on a pendant around your neck.
No problem with that. Leaves my wrist free for my other Breitling.
It's 1,500 euros. And they told me in the boutique that there was a guy who got one for both sides.
Mr. Worldwide.
Yes, that was probably me. Anyway, good stuff. Now, yes, as we begin this show, and I realise I've done something wrong with recording while I try to fix it. This is what live recording's all about. Ariel, Ripley, Houdinki have just offloaded all of their X inventory ahead of Watch of Switzerland deal. What do you think they had left in the shop?
I know nothing about their business. I have no idea what inventories they ever had. I'm not the right person to ask. I truly have no idea what they did over there.
So is this pretty much like largely what they were a retailer for, like the brand new watches?
Yeah, I think this is for Crown and Caliber. And while you discuss this urgent matters of state amongst yourselves, I'm going to need to log off if I can and log back on. I'm not even sure how I do that while hosting the show.
He also has the camera resources issue, apparently.
Yes, I have made a bit of a mistake. So discuss amongst yourselves while I figure out how to...
Free for all.
Yes, free for all. Go for it. You have 20 seconds to discuss amongst yourselves live. Any topic you like, back in 2.
Well, I mean, you got to figure that if it is the brand new watches and it isn't like the vintage stuff that they have sourced and curated, that a lot of it is probably just kind of the stuff that they didn't sell, the non-bread and butter stuff from whatever brands it was.
Well, if they're not going to be a store, then they need to get rid of their inventory. Every single store when they end has a closeout sale. That's so much of what's on Joma Shop. I mean,
actually, someone I know messaged me saying they picked up the Timex Houdinki collab for it was shockingly cheap. It was a fraction of the price of what the new Pan Am Timex collab was going for, and good on him for getting a deal. But I imagine it's some of that stuff we haven't seen for months, and it kind of was just sort of sitting on the site.
There's a whole
promoted
community of professionals, we'll call it that. Most of them are in New York. And they're what I call luxury deal hunters. A lot of it's watches. And they just wait for someone who's in trouble to be like, I have a bunch of old sold something. And then they're just like, what kind of deal could I make? And they just sort of wait around for this to happen because every couple of months there's somebody. For a long time, it was retail stores, of course. So there's a whole network out there that's established to take these products, to absorb them. This wasn't hard. I mean, this was a failed company that needed to sell off its liabilities and deal with as much debt as possible. So I don't know why it's so surprising that they had to sell everything they had to raise as much cash as possible so that they'll be off the hook for the debt they're in.
Yeah, and I don't think it's the remarkable watches either that we're going to see surface. It's the random stuff that they were a retailer for that they didn't sell that can basically just integrate into any other retail environment and be sold, with the exception of the various kind of collabs or limited editions they did. So I think it'll just sort of be like when any other business goes under and its inventory gets redistributed or absorbed by another entity.
What do you think they were left with?
Are you in the market, Rick? Is that what we're getting to?
Never in the market. Never in the market. too Scottish for that.
Never bought
So,
a watch before.
Never bought a watch. Not buying anymore. Any never.
What
pay
is Scottish
full
about that, by
sticker.
the way? I'm confused.
Because we're tight. If that word
There's whole
translates.
Scottish watch brands. Someone's got to be buying them over there.
They're not buying them in Scotland. So it's export, big export markets. Whiskey.
Oh, I see.
It's all a myth. We don't drink. We're all teetotal in Scotland. Anyway, there we go. Right. Well, let's do our actual show. I have no idea because I'm currently faced with a black screen on the live broadcast, but everything is telling me it's going okay. So if you're there, feel free to tell us, or whether you're seeing the black screen of death, but we'll sort that out later on. So let's clap in as we normally do. Feel free to clap on at home, and we'll get started. So 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Here we go. Greetings and welcome to this week's aBlogtoWatch Weekly. It's the four of us. I think we're all in our own locations. Yes, everybody seems to be where they're normally. But how has the week been? Ripley, what have you been up to?
I got back at the end of last week. I was in Prague visiting the company Robot Watch, a very interesting brand. I'll be putting together a review of one of their watches. We've written about their watch, one of their other models once before, so feel free to check it out on the site. Met up with Ariel last night, and those of you not watching the podcast, wearing a fantastic new aBlogtoWatch shirt.
Great.
Yes.
The brand.
Yes, the embroidered version of the Submariner shirt in red, so it's the classic geometric hour markers, but embroidered rather than luminous. So yeah, I think there is a whole treasure trove of aBlogtoWatch shirts for me to get through before I circle back to a brand. So prepare to see all of our spring collection coming up throughout the coming weeks.
Spring collection. Love it. Ariel, what have you been up to the last week?
Well, I also looked through those boxes with shirts, and there's some amazing stuff in there. I mean, I made the decision a while ago that we need to wholeheartedly remain a media organization, which means writing about other people's stuff. When you have to promote your own stuff, it's a whole other thing. So we like making stuff, but I've thoroughly decided we never want to spend too much time selling your own stuff. With little caveats here and there, but it's a fun thing to do. So, but we really like making stuff. I'm going on a family trip, so there's be no watches, though I'm going to see a couple of watch retailers, and I know there's going to be some watch releases next week because of the various activities in New York. But next, in a couple days, another watch I designed, this one, is coming out. So by the time you hear this, this is a watch I designed with Zodiac and eBay. So this is the eBay Super Seawolf.
Is it like co-branded on a dial or somewhere? Where does it say eBay on it?
On the case back.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. So this would be the third Zodiac that I've done. Of course, they've given me no credit for it, even though it's completely my idea. Public.
That's how backwards we are when it comes to selling stuff. Like, it's not that we get paid; we don't even get the credit. That's great.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. I did this as a favor. Both clients and stuff like that, helping them out. So like I had fun doing it and it's successful. You guys will see some closer up shots of it. It's cool, some things we did, but that's coming out. So that'll be on the 18th, I guess, is when the launch date is. I would say the whole point is just you can only buy it on eBay.
Because
what is the name of it?
I think they're just calling the Zodiac X eBay Super Seawolf.
Not like the Deal Diver or anything.
The deal,
like that.
Look, you don't even want to know the crazy suggestions I had during this process. Okay, I got deep.
The Auction Hunter.
Let's just say I opened it up for a lot more follow-up models. Okay.
The countdown bezel that gives you the remaining minutes left, so you can monitor.
No, we have that. It does have a countdown bezel.
Oh, fantastic! I can't wait to see this.
Yeah, we did. We at least did that. Come on.
Well, I am being told that for whatever reason we are facing black screen of death on the channel. So there we go. And there's no audio either, so it's not even that they can hear us. It's just blackness staring into the soul of the average watchmaker. It happened last week as well. Like, it cut off about 45 minutes. So anyway, it's all Riverside's fault. So we shall see. So I'm not quite sure the meta relation.
Does that
of
mean
you're
we're
gonna
the
be
only ones
list-
enjoying this conversation? Darn.
Yeah, so
Ugh.
we're listening to it. I mean, I'll put it up sort of live later on, so you'll get to enjoy it. As there's about 13 different ways you're going to be able to enjoy the show when it finally comes out. But yeah, apologies, you're not going to be able to watch it live as normal. Now, Ariel, we're talking about eBay there. eBay have changed some bits and pieces in terms of what they do. I'll share this article for those watching on video. This has predominantly been in the UK, Germany. I don't know if it's been any sign of this happening elsewhere.
Just the UK
But,
and Germany right now.
Yeah, we now don't pay fees for anything. It's not just watches, it's for anything, as I understand it.
Right now, there's a lot of experimentation happening. This is a lot of context here. But what eBay is trying to do for a lot of things, in only some markets, the US is not part of this right now, is say that if you're going to sell, you're a private seller, and you're going to sell stuff, we're not going to charge you anything to do that. You get to keep 100% of whatever you make. If you decide to pay for shipping, yes, you can, but there's no like fee. And they haven't correspondingly created a buyer's fee in those markets. That's the way they're going to offset it, because they do provide a lot of services. So right now, for, I don't know, a few months, basically you can sell stuff on eBay with no fee, and people are buying it with, I guess there's the normal fee, not a higher fee. So it's a good market to sell things. Like because people are going to get a lot of a bang for their buck, and you're going to get a lot of return, right? If you manage to sell something, you'll get more money. It's, I think it's more than 10% more money. So that's decent. But I think it's interesting in larger scope to discuss how these platforms are trying to compete for people to list their watches there. And, the platform wars aren't just coming, they're here. eBay, just by virtue of how big it is going to win a lot of them. But what's at stake is an attractive place to not just buy a watch, there's plenty of those, but to say, I have an unwanted watch that is not bad, but I want to sell it. And I want to know the best way of doing that. And, I like tuning eBay's horn, but there's other platforms out there for different types of buyers of different types of things for sure. It's not a huge amount of platforms. But this is in the context of multi-brand watch retailers that sell mostly new as well as used going under. Hodinkee we're talking about. And at Richemont, they just sold a YNAP, which is a company they own that had a site called Ukes, and of course Net-a-Porter that has Mr. Porter that aBlogtoWatch has done business with. And the reporting on these businesses is that there's some type of a failure. And I think that's very unfair, because while they have in the practice that they've sort of been through been a profit failure, I think that people have been going about it wrong. For example, Richemont invested in these companies not for the ability to sell products like watches to consumers directly online so much, but for a technology backend, like to power their own e-commerce sites. I'm like, Shopify can do that just fine. I'm somewhat facetious, but not really. And it's insofar that I think that they're investing in these companies for the wrong reasons and not necessarily understanding that it's less about the technological backend, but it's more about the positioning. Does the store seem to have the finger on the pulse? Is it able to communicate with people? Is it able to be where the buyers are? This type of agility and this type of presence and the service really is far more important. It's all related to the humans in the background. There's really no technology that's about this. And if you buy a store, for example, without the culture, without the actual people in the background that are operating it, just the intellectual property and the website, just they don't mean anything at all. So it's interesting to see that some of the investor mentalities definitely want to have something to do with it, but I think they keep failing for very predictable reasons. And so I'd like to obviously see stronger environments to sell, especially new watches online in a multi-brand environment, because I think it's silly that there's hundreds of websites and every single one of them has their own e-commerce store. So there ends up being like hundreds of different completely non-standardized, stores to buy watches online all the time. I just think that's kind of silly. Imagine if watches were all that different, it'd be kind of weird. So I think that this is an area where it's clearly a work in progress in an evolutionary period. But it's interesting how these large corporate groups have fundamentally misunderstood how to invest in online multi-party retailers.
So do we think that effective everything's just continuing to go around full circle? Watch brands, conglomerates are just returning to being folk that know how to sell watches, while other parts of the market are in a cycle. For example, Watches of Switzerland buying a media group. Eventually that'll unwind itself and, 10 years from now, Hodinkee will be floated off as its own wee thing, and Watches of Switzerland will return to selling watches, and Audemars Piguet will go full circuit, and eventually they'll get, retailers back involved. Do we think that, entropy flows to everyone doing what they're good at rather than trying to be all things to all people?
I think that if you look at why publicly traded companies buy and sell other companies, there's far more reasons than we thought that was a good financial investment. Sometimes they're actively looking for losses. Sometimes they would rather buy an entity than build something from scratch for a lot of dumb reasons. So I don't know that these are all necessarily wise decisions that they're doing. I think you and I agree that that's going to unwind, meaning whatever value they thought they were getting is not necessarily going to be what they believed, and it's more complicated than just buying it. I think that they believe that even if they mismanage it, and we talked about this before, there'll be some legacy value for several years of the SEO value of the web pages and the body of content that will, it's old Rolexes aren't being added, right? If they've done a good job at cataloging the world of vintage Rolex, that more or less stays the same. So from an SEO perspective, a lot of that stuff remains as long as they're planning on selling Submariners. The history of the Submariner doesn't change. I just presume there's a lot of that stuff on Hodinkee. So in that sense, I can understand. I don't think they paid very much for it. But again, I wouldn't say that they got a good deal. I mean, if they really just wanted to have a media company, I think we all know, start from scratch. Create your own in-house culture. Why try to awkwardly adapt something that you haven't built when we know that a creative environment has to begin with an in-house culture? I mean, it's always that way.
David Ripley comments on what's going on in the marketplace. We also see Rolex numbers doing well in the UK, but other watch brands doing exactly the reverse of the numbers, like Rolex sales up about 12%, everybody else down about 12%. Is everybody just running towards a safe haven in the storm, which is wait in line for your Rolex?
I mean, I think Rolex will always be the exception in things other than even just sales. I don't think Rolex's worst quarters are still better than what many brands can dream of. And I think right now, with it being right on the cusp of an election in the United States, not a general blooming economic time throughout the globe, people, compared to other watches, a Rolex isn't that expensive. You buckle in for somewhere in the neighborhood of, $5 to $12,000, unless you want something not in stainless steel. That's a reasonable purchase compared to the 20, 30 grand entry points of other companies that have far less liquidity. So for the person who wants to get themselves a new watch, enjoy something nice, yeah, of course, it makes perfect sense why they're getting a Rolex. It's, they're in it for 10 grand. They can get out of it for roughly the same. It's not as much of a risky purchase. It's not as much of a celebratory purchase as buying a new Patek or something like that. So, the fact that it's kind of bucking in the face of what's seen elsewhere in the market, that doesn't really surprise me too much. I think that'll be the case in many instances when times are tough. Rolex sort of persists, and it doesn't necessarily go up in astronomical sense, but it just sort of kind of does what it does, and people look to it in the same way people like hoard gold or something when they're worried about their national currency.
David, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I would just exclude Rolex from the equation. I think there's Rolex and then there's everybody else. I would only focus on Rolex whenever there's a big shift in terms of, the value drops, or the resale value, or the Rolex index, or whatever you want to call it, drops 40% or something like that. That is a seismic shift that we have to be aware of. But just, people with 10 grand flocking to the store and buying a 10 grand Rolex, there's nothing new to that. And I don't think that reflects on the state of the industry. Everything else is going on is what matters, because, then we have all the other brands, and the health and the situation that they are in is important to everybody who likes watches, I think. And yeah, I think this is now becoming a buyer's market in all kinds of ways, left and right. which to me, since I like buying watches every now and then, is and I'm not sitting on a large stash of steel whatever, is a good thing. I was sort of quietly depressed by this skyrocketing resale value, game of musical chairs, hoarding thing that we saw, just around COVID. I'm happy that that's over now.
Is it a buyer's market? Like, are we going beyond the buyer's market, whereby some prices are falling so fast that buyers are now not actually buying because they're just waiting? I can put off the buying of that for another month because it'll be cheaper, and so actually the price then chases its way down to get effectively a recession in watches. Are we at that stage yet, or do you feel that things are settling now at what many of us would think would be more of a reasonable situation, whereby pretty much everything that you could buy is now less than retail, sensibly less than retail, and there's deals to be done even buying through the retailer, with the exception of your Rolexes and your Richard Milles and real high-end stuff that you'd have to be on some sort of approved list to get hold of.
Yeah, all of that is happening big time at the moment, and I think it's still bound to continue a little bit. So if you're planning on buying, just make an offer. Maybe, it will be something that the seller can't refuse.
Cool. Right. Well, seeing as you are wearing a Breitling, let's review a Breitling. This is the Navitimer B01 chronograph 46. Ripley, is there a reason they gave this to you to wear, like a 46mm Breitling? Was somebody having a giraffe where they thought, I know what we'll do. We'll give it to Ripley.
Rick, that is most certainly not my wrist in that photo. That's like what a 42mm looks like on my wrist after it's swollen. There is no way that is mine. I just find these interesting that Breitling makes these US exclusive ones, and I like Breitling. So, Breitling Swiss, but they kind of are more American than like any of the other Swiss luxury brands. They do stuff with football. They're a bit more relaxed. Yeah. We can pronounce their name here in the States, in all 50 states. It's easy. We recognize the big yellow sign. It looks like
Willie Breitling.
Yeah. Willie Breitling could live down the street. This is hardly a man who lives in the Jura Mountains. So, I find these interesting. I also kind of find it interesting to see what Breitling decides to say. Yeah, this is like American, and bless them for not going full America on it, because this could be so tasteless if they just made it like, the Stars and Stripes Independence Day version. But it's properly American sized at 46mm. They do this interesting two-tone thing that they've been doing throughout the collections, where it's two-tone, but it's really just the bezel and dial furniture and hands that are two-tone. And then, of course, there's a dial has some bit of blue and red kind of in there. There's similar versions of this that we've seen on Chronomats. There's kind of a similar color palette that's used on the NFL limited edition that they did earlier in the year. So I find them interesting that this is like the reflection of a classy Americanized Breitling. But it is a stern premium over what they charge for its steel equivalent. And although it seems like something that should exist in ample supply, two-tone chronomats Navitimers aren't really that much of a thing like they are in the Chronomatter collection. So it actually is a bit more unique than it initially might appear when you look at the current lineup.
Now, those of you that watched our live show on Friday, whereby we looked at the best and worst watches of the year, will recognise the little clicking noise that you're getting from Ripley's audio. So whatever you did on Friday to resolve that, Ripley, you can do it again now, because there's still those little clicks.
People like that show, but they did complain about the audio.
Yeah, getting the audio of 8 people, 9 people to be the same on YouTube, as we've just demonstrated, we can't get the 4 of us to broadcast live on YouTube, is just not a terribly practical proposition. But there we go. So, gentlemen, Ariel, David, I suppose, Ariel, from your perspective, I've always got this feeling that Breitling is the most American of Swiss watch brands. I don't know why. It's just really weird.
I
It
feel
does
you.
seem like it would be. Is there some sort of history as to why Breitling feels so American?
I mean, that's a whole other story. You're onto something, though. This watch to me actually feels a bit more cynical because the people who actually work at Breitling headquarters
So
now,
very American then.
the people who work at headquarters, like they're not actually, they're a little bit more like trendy and hip. They're not into the whole big watch thing, so they're like, oh, why do we make a big watch? Well, it's for the American market, you know. So it's like they're saying it almost a pejorative sense of like that's the explanation why we would otherwise have the good taste not to make a watch so large these days. Clearly, they've made plenty of watches that is big in the past, and America is not the only market that buys them. The Middle East, for example, likes their larger watches. But I think it's sort of this funny pastiche is like, this is what we think the American market wants. Huge size, mixture of colors and materials. Like all the things that they like say like doesn't work in the European market. So it's not a bad looking watch, but again, I think it's more cynically designed than otherwise.
Give it to these classless Americans, is that what they're saying? They're saying they'll lap this up. Dinner plates on watches.
They can think of a couple of markets that are like, oh, this will sell well. I'm not going to name those markets. Maybe it's not LA, New York, but they're thinking of the markets.
Good stuff. David?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest.
You said earlier that you'd chosen the Breitling you liked the least to review.
Yes.
Would you rather have reviewed this?
No. I like the Novi timer, but not when it's saucer sized 46 on my narrow wrist. It's just not a good match.
But the good news is that a 46 millimeter Navitimer still only has like a 40 millimeter wide like dial, or maybe smaller, maybe 38 or something.
Maybe
like
smaller.
Yeah.
In the boutique, I spotted the 41 Navitimer with diamonds on it, and I jumped right on it because I was like, "Wow, it's a Navitimer with diamonds! Like that's for me."
Instead of half.
The map is still there. If you could just rotate the diamonds like inside and out, that would be that's next level. And so I checked it out, and it had this 2000s New York jeweler modified Breitling vibe when the watch just starts out like this and then you have a wide bezel like this and then the diamonds are on it. So optically it was kind of disappointing in the real world, but on the pictures it looked great. I quite like this two-tone one with these colors and stuff. My only slight worry with Breitling is that maybe we are heading down a little bit the Panerai path in the sense that now this has the AOPA logo on it just because it has to have it. There you go. We know, folks like it, or the Speedmaster vibe where everything is dot over 90. I know you have to have these codes and keep repeating for people to understand what that is and for them to learn, the heritage or the history of an important collection to validate it further. But at some point, I just want a freaking Navitimer without another association or whatever else on it. But there you go. I quite like the colorway. And yeah, if I could rock a 46, then I'd be tempted with this one for sure.
Good stuff, good stuff. Right, well, there has been one story of the week so far that we haven't covered because nobody has covered it officially other than one unofficial channel, which everyone has jumped on, and that has been, it's gone backwards and forwards as to whether it's real or whether it's fake, but I think
it cannot be real. It can't. Tell me it's not real.
It doesn't seem very fake, though. Like, it doesn't seem fake.
I know, but I just want to hear it's not real. It's like a monster under the bed, It's horrible.
People felt the same way when the Nautilus came out.
Maybe.
Well,
I'm not talking to people. They felt the exact same way. They were like, "Oh my god, this is a joke, right?"
But it's horrible. Have you seen this? It's like a snowball where you shake it and everything just flows down. Basically, all the RNDCs are the same size, but then these rockets just push themselves. Like, oh, here we go.
Oh, this is super real. This is so real.
This is, of course,
so
for those that
even the guy looks like an AI, with his like eyes like this, a little bit. It totally looks like
there's no more human models in their advertising anymore. Are you kidding me? It's not a real man.
For those who haven't gathered, this is the Fortune. This goes into the little folder I've got of watch brands not understanding how media or clocks work, which is, the fact that the digital version of the Fortune magazine is clearly immediately available, whereas the print one follows along a few days later, like the end of the month. So everyone that got their digital version of the Fortune magazine got to see the Patek Philippe Cubitus.
Oh, I thought it was
Should
the
we put
coitus. Jeez.
How was it that Elon Musk pronounced that robo-taxi through the week? I can't even remember. I'm like
Pronounced it? What do you mean?
Well, he's not calling it a robo-taxi. He's pronouncing
isn't it?
No. But he's pronouncing it funny, like he's emphasizing it's taxi or something. It's something stupid if you listen. This is the same with this. We should think of a different way of pronouncing. It should be cubitis.
The problem
like
is
a
you're trying
disease.
to make something already very stupid even stupider, but it's really difficult.
Nautilus Cubitus. I understand it, but coitus would have been better.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. So let's. I'm tempted to say we should play Hit Miss Maybe on this watch. We'll maybe do that particular thing later on in the show.
It.
It's terrible. It's like when you're 8 and you sit down with the goal of like drawing the Nautilus, but you cannot yet draw, and it's just all over the place.
You only have a ruler. You can only use straight lines.
And you're like, sure, I'll go with this. This is really genuinely something that reminds me of the terrible drawings I did when I was 8.
It doesn't help that they use an existing movement that's not symmetrical. I feel like they're really distracted from the case design by having like the wrong movement in it.
Well, it's so similar to the Nautilus that it doesn't really, it just looks like kind of like an homage watch, something you'd find for like a couple $100 on eBay or,
people
in the
were
bowels
supposed
of
to
Amazon.
dislike the Aquanaut. Then all of a sudden they liked it, which was very odd to Patek Philippe. So now they had to create a new watch that people can't really stand.
We dare you. We dare you to like this.
The only reason why they say they do is because they can't afford the Nautilus, and they're like, okay, well, I guess this
and
is
it
the
says
next
Patek Philippe. It is legible.
Yes.
It's the wall clock nobody wanted.
So this is like
Aquanaut at least sounds good. Aquanaut versus Cubitus.
I don't understand why people hate the name so much. Coitus is great.
Ripley, you are still pinging and glitching in the background if you're able to log off and log back on. I think this is. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't hate it, but I don't mind being part of the pylon to hate it. Like, why not? Never going to see them. Question is, everyone's rumoring that this is going to be the entry level. I mean, I would think this is more likely to be
what does that mean?
level.
$35,000? Like, I don't even know what that means anymore.
So, do you think I'm not convinced?
I don't think it'll be entry level, and I think it's a matter. We have to wait for the bracelet. Look, they've got the dumb strap on here. This is they're teasing everybody.
Yeah, and what are those lugs about? I mean, if you're going to make a square watch, make a square watch. Don't make a square watch and then stick things in the center. I mean,
do you know how much more boring it would have been without those lug structures?
Is this like
the lug structure? It's just the shape, that it's pedal shape where everything else is like sharp. I don't understand.
Think of the children, David. They can't connect to the Nautilus. This, at least, they use pedals.
Yes, and it has the hinge on the left-hand side, like the Nautilus.
Yeah.
It has a hinge on a hinge on a hinge. Basically, it's just it's the case that keeps on giving. Basically, it's like more case.
Hinges all the way down.
Doesn't make any sense.
It's weird. How big do you think it is?
I mean, it's probably about 40, I guess. I don't think it's huge.
It's a square, so it wears differently. It usually wears larger square watch.
I think it's going to be cool. It's funny how they've proven that dial works with any case shape. I believe that those hands, any case shape imaginable, those hands will work with.
Yes, that's true. And the garage door, pattern or whatever you want to call it.
Oh, the horizontal lines? Yeah, of course.
Yes. Okay. Great.
Well, I'm trying to let Ripley back in from the lobby. Clearly, Riverside is having a fit about something that they've updated because it is not working very well this morning at all. So I'm going to need to ignore.
Sorry.
It won't even let me ignore him. Hold on, I need to send him a message.
Ignore.
Yeah, it won't let me let him in. Hold on a second.
What do you like about the Cubitus, Ariel? In the meantime, tell me.
It doesn't offend me, and I like weird case shapes.
Okay.
You know I like weird case shapes. I have a long history with weird case shapes.
Yeah, well, this is not weird in the right way to me. It's just
Sure
a
is.
square with hinges on it. Well,
But even
what's
like
wrong with
the
hinges?
strap. Who doesn't like a good hinge?
if you could open
Hinges
like
are
kinda-
for doors.
It works for Bulgari.
Yes.
Yeah, but what's a hinge to do?
It's a
Is that like an idiom or something? I don't know. Is that a Scottish thing?
It's a hinge that fails to fulfill its purpose in life. It's an unfulfilled hinge. It opens
It's a
to nothing.
suggestive hinge, okay?
A suggestive hinge.
You may want to fold here.
It's art.
Oh dear. Right, it's still not letting me let rip when, so goodness knows what's happening. This may be completely a non-recorded show. Who knows if this is working? The other thing about it is that you've got the stripe on the dial, but on the strap it goes in the other direction. It's like it just this is not gonna. This is going to be bad. I think this is going to be one of those few watches that is worse in person than it is in the mock-up photo. Actually,
Okay, can I bring something up? There's a trend now, going on several years, where a watch is released on the internet to be hated until people see it in person. Like, it's not so bad. This happens multiple times a year now. People are continuously surprised that they end up liking something. Can we all just reserve a thought till we see it?
No.
no.
I've seen
Oh,
too many, I've seen too many watches do that. I'm not like. I think we're in the privileged position where we've seen so many of these things.
I thought it was worth a vote at least. Okay.
Yeah.
You lose. You lost.
What
Right, please.
you're describing certainly is true for a wide global audience who has a mixed experience with watches and whatever, because they will see kind of whatever it is
Okay,
that they
put
like.
yourself in Patek's shoes, okay? And they're like, okay, wait a minute, David.
Yeah.
You kept telling me for years that you're so sick of seeing the same Patek. We make a new Patek, and then you hate it. Like, how did we make you happy, watch journalists? What did we do?
Making it good. It's not like we just wanted something new, but something that is pleasant to look at. It is genuinely unpleasant for me to look at that watch. I couldn't even imagine wearing that or associating myself with that shape or that concept for now. At all.
Do you like it more or less than the Code 1159?
Whoa! Now there's a good question. So is this Patek's Code 1159?
I was thinking of that like 30 seconds ago. I like the 1159 a little bit more because it's more restrained. They understood somehow their own limitations and they went with like something rather more basic. And if you turned it to the side, then it looked complex. But from
You
the
mean
front,
adding
at least,
complexity, like in the case where no one needed more complexity?
Yes.
Okay.
The lugs are here. The lugs. Well, whatever. And the logo that took them 2 years to develop. So anyway, let's see this live and reserve judgment until then. For some, I voiced my concern.
Patek's never really going to allow anyone to see this. It isn't been pre-qualified. Like, I'm surprised if we see this in the next 3 years.
This will not be in any stores anywhere. You think they'll just go into hiding?
There'll be pictures of it. It'll just be this mythical Patek that it's going to be more. They know that it's going to be more interesting. That's rare and new than than the design, and so they're just going to de-emphasize the design. In fact, the less people like it, the more they're going to hold back and be like, "Okay, we have to release these super slow."
Yes.
Is it not a strange time of year to do it? End of October.
I mean. It was around this time, I think, one year that they announced they were ending the 5711, only to make like 7 more of them or whatever.
That's right. It does. I thought it was a bit strange. I thought it was a bit strange to do it like this, rather than just hold off to Watches and Wonders and get all the ire out the road.
No, we're in such a watch-induced fugue state around Watches and Wonders. If you showed me this after a few days into the show and not enough sleep, I'd just say, "What'd you guys do to that Nautilus? That one looks all messed up." So it needs to be rolled out by itself once we've all had a little bit of time to reflect, and that way it can exist as the Cubitus. What are we? What is it?
The Cubitus. I think, or maybe it's going to
have your doctor check your Cubitus every now and then.
maybe the eyes are one. Maybe it's the Cub One Tuss. Maybe going to shock us. It's a numeral, and then there'll be the Cub Two Tuss.
I can't unsee that snowball effect, really. Like the little things just flowing down.
It's like I'm gonna let Kevin in just now, and so he can give us an
Maybe Kevin likes
instantaneous.
some serious asymmetry.
Maybe
I feel
maybe
bad.
Kevin
I mean,
likes them.
I'm sure people worked hard on this. It's just the design direction that is just odd. But it's
Well,
difficult to
I still don't
sympathize
hate it.
with Patek. You know,
I don't fault David for how he feels, but I still don't hate it.
Okay, good.
I don't hate it
That's-
either.
Yeah.
Kevin, good morning. Do you hate this as much as David does, or do you love it with the love of 1,000 suns or 1,000 snowballs in the way that Ariel does?
Wow.
Love it sort of in between. I've been on the fence here. Is it real? First
Yes.
of all, is that the real? It is. Right,
Oh,
okay.
I mean, I will literally eat my own Cubitus if it is not real, whatever that is. Sounds quite scary.
Careful
Rick, you
there,
can't
Rick.
do that. It's YouTube. They'll demonetize if you do that on air.
I think that's going to go to
Kids
do
will
with not
try it.
being.
It'll be downhill from there.
I'm just not fundamentally. I'm just not flexible enough, I think, is the main thing. But anyway, yeah. So Kevin, you're on the fence.
Yeah, I mean, there are some design cues and quirks that I just do not like. I mean, case thickness looks really, really strong.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see it in the metal. It's quite thick. I'm going to be bold here and say it's worse than Bremont's reimagining of their range.
Oh, so all we need is a big
That's going to be
tourbillon in
very
the middle.
controversial. Yeah, I'm sure it's coming.
Kevin, could you move your microphone slightly closer to your gob?
Sure. Is that
That's
better?
much better. Yes. That you've raised an interesting point about how thick is this watch going to be. It's possible it's a cube, and that's the Cubitus to it. It's
not going to be that thick.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not going to be very.
It's
thick.
actually
No, it's probably going to be like what's the Nautilus version, like the 5712 or whatever it is that the Nautilus version. It's probably going to be just like that, but they've like cropped its ears off and like straightened out the edges a little bit. I like the case design. It looks like a $40,000 version of the March Lab I reviewed a couple weeks ago.
There was something that
I do
looked
like-
like this. Yes, maybe March Lab. Yes.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
March Lab. It's March
Send-
Lab.
Let's try and find a link.
What was it?
'cause
Maybe
it's
it's
The
March Lab.
AM2.
Yeah, any of the
March
AM2
Lab.
models. But it's not going to be that thick. I have a feeling this is very much going to wear just like the Nautilus version of this.
Okay, yeah. So let's share this screen so as those watching on video can see what we're on about. Yeah, that's a pretty decent call,
Oh, right. Yeah.
to be fair.
I like these watches quite a bit. So, I quite like them at like $2,000 or whatever these cost.
These
It's
more
a
inches.
categorically different. Yeah, it's a categorically different purchase when you get into Patek territory, but they had to take inspiration from somewhere.
And so they chose Marsh Lab to get inspiration from. Yeah, there we go. Good-o. Well, we will see how much realness of this translates over the next week or so, I imagine. Do you think Patek will just... as I understand it, the magazine's not due out to closer to the end of the month, or is it due out... Does anybody buy fortune as to when it's released? In other words,
What
do
a
we think...
disaster of a launch. To launch something in an ad a month early. I mean, people said like they've received it on the 9th already. In digital format.
So do we think Patek will just keep to the program that they were on for launching this? Or do we think we'll suddenly see some rushed press releases and some people with the surname Stern being Stern?
They're going to do the same thing they're going to do.
That they will.
They'll just
Yeah.
keep going the way they were going.
Yeah.
Cool. Right. Well, let's do some hit miss maybe. And let's start with this little quiet number. Inoffensive, the Richard Mille RM6501 automatic split seconds chronograph McLaren W1 watch. It's a very long name for a very in your face watch. Ripley, you wrote the article on this. Anything we should particularly note about this RM, or is it just an RM with McLaren written on it?
Well, it's inspired by the W1, which is kind of the modern day successor to McLaren's like 1 series of cars, which are like their ultimate, road car, like the F1, which is like, the legendary one where you're literally sitting in the middle of it. This is now the W1, and so they're taking inspiration from that. The kind of updated version of the RM's case silhouette's inspired by a downward look on like the upper part of the car, looking down on it. And obviously the colors appear in McLaren's papaya orange and what have you. High beat, 5 hertz chronograph movement. And it, just like we've seen on other models, it's a function selector switch in the crown, so it doesn't pull out at all. You just press the button on the tip to change between winding, hand setting, and hacking. Yes, it's a flat. Obviously the name tells you quite a lot about it and the partnership and what it does. So yeah, it's a flyback. And then rather than just winding it through the crown or the rotor, you can push the button, which also winds it in a more rapid rate. In case you're like picking it up and haven't worn it in a few days, you can kind of press that orange button, and it winds the watch more quickly to kind of get things going, and you can start your day. David's pointed something interesting out, that compared to the number of cars being produced, all of which are already spoken for, all 399 of them, they're producing 500 of these, so there will be more watches than cars, but it is quite a bit less expensive than one of the cars, which cost, if you were lucky to get one, a couple $1 million minimum. This is like, I believe, $388,000.
Oh, a snip at half the price.
Oh,
but
one other detail: it uses a 2-layer bezel, carbon fiber and titanium. The carbon fiber part is the thinnest RM bezel that they were very happy to point that out. At the thinnest point, it's about 0.5 millimeter. So it's that carbon fiber inlay is quite thin, and they are proud of that.
Okay, cool. Well, let's see if we think they should be proud of it. Is it a hit, a miss, or a maybe? 1, 2, 3, go. Miss, hit, maybe. It's a miss. I'm just bored with Richard Mille now. They're just like, get a new trick. We need new tricks from Richard Mille if they're this big spectacular watch company that can do all things. Can we have something new? Admittedly, we said that to Patek, and we are getting the Cub 1 TUS. So maybe we shouldn't actually ask Richard Mille to do anything new, because who knows what monstrosity we get. Ariel, how did you vote?
I gave it a hit. I think this is a really cool watch. I think this is the exact type of thing that we want to see from Richard Mille. It's an evolution on their core thing. They've done some new stuff. It is exorbitantly expensive, but it's a very practical watch in a lot of ways. The button to rapidly wind is kind of a neat little feature. I think it's legible. I happen to like the color palette. I can completely understand why a lot of people wouldn't like this. It wouldn't fit with them. You have to be in a very special mindset to sort of get all this. But I can't help it. I think this is really, really cool. And I would, again, can't afford one of these even close, but I think this is a really awesome watch. I'm excited to wear one.
Good. I like excited enough to go and we say that felt like I'm excited enough to wear one, and I have one on order.
No, it's like $330,000. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of t-shirts. Ripley, you need to be modeling those aBlogtoWatch t-shirts.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have like a country buy t-shirts before like these are something we can buy.
So if aBlogtoWatch t-shirts,
Croatia, you want our shirts? The entire country can pull in.
I think we're talking about clothes, but I think the answer is less clothes. I think if we just put together a paywall and just appeared behind it doing similar video content, but with less clothes, I think that's where we're gonna see the largest gains.
You think?
I mean, it's about time a watch blogger became an OnlyFans model. I mean, it was only men. So one
the channel's going to be called Only Richard Mille.
Only watch might be only
standard wrist shots, basically. It's not feet, it's hands.
No, all you're wearing is the watch, so it's only the watch.
To be fair, I think
only watch. Not that only watch is a thing at all, but we could try only watch on OnlyFans.
If the auction doesn't come back,
Yeah, there's a good chance of that.
There is an option.
Let's jump on that trademark.
Yeah, I think we all know which particular watch blogger fancies himself most as an OnlyFans model, but that's for a different day. Anyway,
Okay.
David, David, what did you think of this?
I voted a maybe. It's interesting because I looked at it and then, just when you look down on this watch, like face on, it looks fat. And I was going to say that, as watches evolve, especially super high-end, highly engineered watches from, brands like Richard Mille, I expect them to be thinner and thinner. And then Ripley mentioned that the bezel is actually 0.5 millimeters thick. And I thought, like, okay, that's where we're going. So that's cool. In some way, they actually made some sort of a more filigree execution of some part. But if you look just down on this watch, just to create this illusion that it looks like a W1, it looks like a relatively small-ish watch with this fat bezel on it. I'm impressed by the fact that they could rearrange the dial and the indications, that the date, for whatever inexplicable reason, is now at 11 o'clock and not somewhere else. It's just a mixed bag of typical Richard Mille elements, with a big 12 at 12 o'clock, but no other numerals anywhere else. It's just an odd-looking execution. It's like you put all of those things that a Richard Mille can be, put it in a bag, shake it, and then this is what comes out of it. I'm also impressed that they have the confidence to try and ship 300 of these, 500 of these. That's quite a lot. My last number, the last number in my head was like 4,500, 5,000 Richard Mille watches produced in a year. And I asked, and they say, well, they've been increasing production year over year for some time. Of course, they're not going to say how many watches they're making, but way past 5,000 if they're trying to ship 500 of just this one model.
Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with David on most of the comments he's made. It does look rather fat, and it looks rather cluttered as well with the date window. I think they just decided to put it where there was space, effectively. It just looks a bit odd, and it's also a money grab. I mean, come on, there were 399 cars, and they're producing 500 odd watches. That smacks of money grab to me. Not that they need the money, of course, but it's just they should limit it to the number of cars, and that would be done.
We can only buy watches when they confuse us enough to thinking it's not a money grab. Okay, all right.
I think so.
Ripley, how did you vote? Or is this a money grab?
The brand doesn't sell anything for less than six figures. I think we can just sort of let that answer the money grab question. The whole brand, the concept of the brand, it's a brand that like largely exists to the mainstream people. It's not necessarily for a design aesthetic. People know Richard Mille because it's like, what's that G-Shock looking watch that costs $1 million? So that's kind of the whole concept of the brand. That's like being this Veblen good is really just the brand's identity. And then secondary to that, it's like, yeah, they're actually really cool engineered pieces, and they can survive playing tennis or whatever. I said it's a maybe. It's not my favorite Richard Mille, but there's a lot to appreciate here. Unlike earlier pieces that use their tonneau-shaped case, the main plate of the movement is properly, manufactured in the same shape of the watch. There's no movement retaining ring. It sits on these kind of rubber shock absorber connection points inside the case, which I think is a nice touch. It's, very integrated in that capacity. But then you also have to remember that this is a Richard Mille that costs over $250,000, closer to $500,000 US, almost 400,000. And this isn't a watch where someone's getting, I'm only getting one of these. This is the practical watch I wear every day. This is a ridiculous, extravagant, or illogical toy for rich dudes. And at the end of the day, if you have the McLaren, obviously you need the watch for it now because you're already in it for several $1 million. And if you can't afford the car or weren't able to get the allocation, but still have that type of money to play with, here you go, here's a good way to spend $388,000. I bet it's going to be very well executed and just like a flagrant, very colorful, fun toy. And realistically speaking, that's what we want from Richard Mille, like kind of fun, whimsy stuff. This is just sort of that, but in a more adult motorsport inspired direction versus like candy or emojis or stuff they've done in the past.
What do you suppose is the watch that is the most outlandish, that is the only watch that a person owns? Because as you say, the assumption is if you own one of these, it's part of a collection. What do you think is the most ridiculous watch that you could only have as your only watch, if that makes any sense? Like, we're suggesting no one could only ever just own a bright orange McLaren Richard Mille without owning several
The Omega
Rolexes of theirs.
Prof.
The Omega Pro as an only watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good shout, actually. It's a good shout. Any other nominations?
I would go with
ridiculous
something
only-
from Frank Miller, like a
Oh,
diamonds
yes.
at crazy hours with gems sticking out of the lugs and whatever
Oh.
else. Or even they made this one that I really liked that had an alligator skin pattern across the case and the dial, so it was this 3D effect.
The Curvex crocodile, I remember.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Wasn't that great?
Crocodile.
I thought that was
Yeah, they made a lot of versions of that. They went crazy.
Yes. They couldn't make enough of them. People just kept letting them up. Well, that was fun.
Good stuff. Right. Well, we're going to do something quite similar to what we've just looked at, but in an entirely different price bracket. But, from a distance, you might be hard pushed to spot the difference. The Hublot Spirit of Big Bang, and then some words. And then
Nothing like a
Polo
good
Classic
budget
Watch.
timepiece.
Yeah, this is a £30,000 version of the Hublot Spirit. I quite like the look of this. It's got full USB compatibility back
Great.
in the watch, which is good to see. And you probably could. Well, could you? Are you any more likely to wear this playing a game of polo than a JLC Reverso Myth watch?
No, it's not
I
about
think I'd
polo.
like that.
It's about the champagne. Let's be real.
It's
It's about
Yeah.
It's like
spectatorship, the art of
It's about
spectatorship.
drink.
The art of
Yeah,
spectatorship.
Yeah, they're not marketing this as this is what the polo players wear. They're marketing it to celebrate their role as the official timekeeper of the Veuve Clicquot
That's
Polo
hysterical.
Classic, which let's also recognize Veuve is owned by LVMH, who owns Hublot. So this is really like, you DJing your friend's party type of deal as far as like the role of timekeeper. But I love this for them. I'm a fan of the champagne. I'm a fan of the Spirit of Big Bang. So what's not to like? Horses, Rick, there's something for you in this as well.
I'm there. I mean, it's just like those football teams whereby the rich dude that owns both the football team and the brand moves money around by using one to sponsor the other.
We were just
and then
talking
gets
about the
deducted.
Sarai with that. This is the exact same story. It's a little bit
Same
less
stuff.
unethical.
Good stuff. Well, let's give it a little bit of a vote. Is it a hit, a miss, or a maybe? 1, 2, 3, go. Hit, maybe, hit. I really like it. I think it looks really cool, and that's all I need to know. Ariel.
It's nice. I would just need to make sure that it's not another illegible black on black Hublot dial, which has happened many times in the past. So I like it in a lot of ways. I think the black and orange is cool. I just want to make sure if I was going to wear this on a daily polo outing, schedule that I have, I could read the time because I need to know when my match is over.
Need to know when to change your one of many horses.
I mean, Ed's pictures could go either way. Like it could be legible, or it could be like, it's a bit black on black.
You'll be able to see the second hand. I think that's clear.
Okay, there's that. That's true.
That may be it. That may be it. David, I think you voted miss on this.
Yeah, it's a miss. I mean, if this came with bottomless Veuve Clicquot, then sure, sign me up. But
Doesn't click quote sound like some type of online productivity software?
it sort of does, yes.
Slack, click quote.
I'm just not a fan of this design. The reflective crystal, everything's black, but not in a nice. I just don't like the design. That's all. Talk about a fat watch. I mean, this is a wall like this, and it's long. No, I don't think this looks too good on anybody's wrist. Really, this long ribbon of a watch.
I wish it was white and matched those hats they wear.
Now we're talking.
Yeah.
But it's for the polo. It's not for the polo. It's for the champagne, as you pointed out. Does
it look like champagne? No.
Champagne? No,
Your champagne's that color. Please don't drink it.
They should have taken this idea from Chopard, like Happy Diamonds or something, and just have some champagne in between, like two panes of like
Happy bubbles
on the front. Yeah, and just happy bubbles. And you just look through the champagne to read the time. Now that would have been a classic thing.
No, so I'm just adding that to our watch design as we speak. So a bit like the Zin watch,
champagne
oil in the middle.
Dial.
We're just going to have champagne filled dial. That's
like
good.
Half Zin, half HYT. There could just be like a structure of champagne circulating through the watch.
It could be like that. It'd be like the other Richard Mille watch, the Rambo watch, whereby you could just unscrew the side for a wee tipple. Should you need it? Should you need a wee click? I don't know how to pronounce it. Anyway, right, Kevin, what do you reckon?
I love this.
No.
I disagree with everything you said. It's a much better execution compared to the original. I love the yellow secondhand. I'm not sure about the story behind it. I mean, government sponsoring a champagne house.
Dates at 4:30.
But
it's the Champagne
dates
House.
at 4:30.
It's the Champagne House's polo tournament. It's Hublot's role as the timekeeper of the Champagne House's tournament.
So they've made up a tournament and they've built a watch around it. Basically,
That's like it's like Donald Trump winning his own event at his own golf courses, or
Yeah.
what's the North Korean
No,
guy?
it's a champagne inventing reasons to drink it.
How did he not get confused on who pays who?
Not that they need more. I'm sure they don't.
I mean, there are all these brands. Like, how do they decide who pays whom for the sponsorship? Like, you're organizing it, but we're paying for it. We're all in the same company. But Uber's making a watch, so I guess they should pay. And then it's just the whole thing just.
Maybe there's a mandate at LVMH where companies at least once per quarter have to like collaborate with one another. And this is just one of the outcomes. Like they're not giving any more guidance and like cross-pollinate. All of you guys, cross-pollinate.
It's the equivalent of going on team building days. What they do is they invent events to go on rather than team building going paintballing. This is the equivalent of going
Horses.
It's a cool piece.
Horses are lovely, but I gave it a hit because Veuve, it's fine champagne. I like Veuve Clicquot, but it's not an especially expensive bottle. I don't know if it's going to cost different things in different places depending on the taxes. But out here in California, it's like $50-$60 for a bottle. At any given point in time, it's kind of like the nicest bottle of champagne you're going to find at like the average grocery store, convenience store type of thing. So the fact that there is a watch that costs tens of thousands of dollars celebrating this reliable but ubiquitous sort of like solid but not overtly bougie champagne that has this polo tournament, I kind of love everything about that. It's so bizarre and deep cut that trying to explain it to someone is going to confuse them more than trying to have them pronounce the name of it. And I love that this thing exists. This is exactly what you want from Hublot. Just this thing where you're going, wait, rhinoceroses? Wait, champagne, America? Like they have that Texas watch too. Like you got to love this from Hublot. This is like what keeps This is what keeps our release calendar fun.
This was launched in Los Angeles. This is a full-on American watch.
Yeah. Ed was there. That is Ed's wrist.
Polo. Yeah, but it was released here in LA, so it's like it looks like it's this Euro thing. Not at all.
Do we know if Ed enjoyed himself?
It's sponsored by a champagne company.
Didn't complain.
Of course he did.
Of course he did. He didn't complain. There was no complaint. Don't send me to that horse thing with all the champagne flowing out of every orifice again. How dare you? I feel abused by my employer going to this event. Right, well, let's do one final hit miss maybe today, and this is one that you covered, Ripley, the Bell & Ross BR-X5 iridescent watch. My question is, what is an iridescent watch, and is there a reason why this is so rare, or is it?
It's not rare. From what I can tell, it's not a limited edition. So this is the BR-X5. Bell & Ross is famous for like the circle within the square case instrument aesthetic. That's part of their instruments collection.
Yes,
this is part of the
off.
This is the urban collection. So like the BR-05, the BR-X5 is like the nicer version, much more intricate case, multi-component, uses a Kinesi movement rather than the Solitas that you find in the like the BR-05. This watch basically is just a dial variation of the core collection steel models. Like before, you can get it with a bracelet or a rubber strap. Same Kinesi movement. This is literally just a dial variation. But it is a full $1,000 more expensive than the standard production models.
Okay, well, on that basis, is it the hit and miss, or maybe 1, 2, 3, go? Maybes, hits, maybes. Yeah, I think, unlike the Patek, this genuinely is one you need to see in the flesh to see whether that iridescence is going to be nice or going to be deeply annoying, because I've got a sneaky suspicion it could be the sort of thing that the novelty wears off quite quickly. Ariel, what do you think?
With a luxury watch, especially a fashionable one like this, I think you want to get a look that's very difficult to get at a less expensive price point. And the company that comes to mind when it comes to iridescence is Casio, right? They have so many watches with the iridescent coatings in the hundreds of dollars, like most of them under $1,000. And like they're the full thing. They have the dial, they have the case, sometimes the bracelet. Like that's the way to get that iridescent look. Metallic dials frequently look cheap as opposed to high end. They can be done well, but like everyone here who's ever taken a picture of a watch knows that this was heavily doctored. Like there's no way this is just like right out of the camera. The dial tends to change color. It's essentially electroplated galvanic coating. So it's not that expensive to do. I guess maybe they did a bunch of layers and did it a fancy way. But again, I try to measure this against what is available on the market. And while it might be cool looking, like to have such a high premium associated with it and runs the risk of just having a sort of a cheap, shiny metallic look, it's not the BR5X, for me.
David?
I would say it for me. I really quite like this. When it comes to something as novel as this, and you say, well, the novelty might wear off. Well, if you get this with a black dial, there's no novelty anywhere. So you still get the same package that you can. If you get this watch because you like the package, right? And you get something sprinkled on top to entertain you in those gloomy days, and maybe you get bored with it at some point. But in my experience, maybe a month or two goes by, and then it's the best thing ever once again. So I think it's just this phasing in and out when it comes to these novel features is something that I tend to do, and maybe that resonates with others as well. I quite like it how on some pictures it's green with the green sweater on the picture. Sometimes it's purple or blue. I absolutely love this effect, and I'm maybe it looks cheap, but I'm not sure it does. I think judging from these pictures that I agree with Ariel are of course heavily doctored and very professionally done, I guess we should say. I think it's really cool, especially on the white rubber strap. And you get the code 1159 lugs as well that are hollowed out, but it's like a quarter of the price basically. So that's cool.
Yeah, cool. Kevin?
I gave it a maybe. I would love to see this in the metal as soon as possible, but it does look quite interesting. There's a couple of things I don't like about it. It's the date window or the half wheel or whatever it is you could call it. Not sure if that quite works, but and the fact that they've charged an extra $1,000 on top of the standard model, that's a bit of a stretch for me. I can't see why they would charge an additional.
That's the fun tax
as large as that. So,
yeah,
fun tax. That's the money grab bit. They're grabbing more money. But no, it's an interesting piece. I've always liked that shape. And I'm a big fan of Belarus. They do some interesting models and color variations, and they are pushing the boundaries a bit. I did like I think it was last year they produced the full loom version. It was really nice. I really do like that. But yeah, it's a maybe. The main downside is the price. $1,000 increase.
The full loom, by the way, when it was not glowing, to me looked like a chunk of solidified mucus, in my opinion.
Oh, when the case was loomed as well, but there's one with a ceramic case that's much nicer. Yes.
Yeah, a little ceramic case version. Yeah.
Yeah, I said it's a maybe for me. It's the price that really sort of keeps it from being a hit. In a vacuum, I think it's great. I think it's kind of a fun, whimsical, refreshing take on this elevated model that they offer. I think the BRX5 itself is a very nice watch. If someone hasn't seen one in the metal, it's worth checking out because it really does feel like a solid step above like the standard BR05. That said, it does cost quite a lot more, and not just due to its movement, the case architecture and all that. I don't love the style of date window, this sort of aviation altitude indicator thing. I know why they're doing it, to kind of remind us that they like pilots' watches and do that cockpit instrument stuff, but I feel like it could have been left off this the BRX5 and better integrated. As Ariel mentioned, this is a dial effect that can be found elsewhere. Tissot recently, alongside that carbon fiber PRX, released a multicolored dial that kind of looks very similar at regular PRX price. So if you kind of want an integrated bracelet color changing blue-green dial.
Hmm.
There's one there for a fraction of the cost. It may not look very premium in person, but $1,000 for a dial variation that isn't like a stone dial, a diamond set dial, or something like that just seems like it seems nuts when you're not dealing with like a $50,000 watch. We had a similar discussion when they did the new divers. There was a reasonable price premium to go to a ceramic case, but then to get the ceramic case with the full lume dial, it was like almost the same price that you paid to get the ceramic case. So it was, this seems par for the course for their pricing, but in a vacuum, I think it's a great watch, but it almost seems like there's a pricing error with when you get to like how much more it costs than an otherwise identical equivalent with like a black dial or an ice blue dial.
Mm-hmm. Good-o. Well, that's our show for this week. Hopefully there will be a show because we've had so many issues with the recording this morning. So best of luck if you made it this far. You've done better than, well, Ripley almost didn't make it. It's fair to say Ripley was almost left behind. But we don't like to leave a man behind on this show. So we rescued him from the jaws of whatever fate, black screen of death. And microphone buzz was waiting for him. What is up and coming in this week? Anyone got anything exciting happening in the world of watches this week that are particularly looking forward to? Maybe Patek's next press release.
Yeah, I'm going to Hong Kong for a week for an horological forum organized by Dubai Watch Week, so that's going to be fun. So
Cool.
I'll be away next week. We'll see if I can
You
take
mean
part.
in Hong Kong for horological re-education?
Yes.
I see.
Good stuff. And anyone else get any trips? Or
Not a trip,
particularly watches
but
coming in?
tomorrow we'll be over with Breitling. They're having a little get together for their NFL related launch in local here in Beverly Hills. So I'll go over there, make an appearance. I get to wear my Breitling at a Breitling event. So
Woo! Double
I've
Breitling.
already cut the top 3 buttons off my shirt just to prepare for it.
Are you wearing denim? Double denim at the same time? Double denim, double Breitling?
I don't have the hair color to contrast with it.
Could
but
you yell
I will.
touchdown one time inappropriately during the evening?
Yeah. Or maybe
I hope someone breaks a glass. Yeah, I hope someone breaks a glass or drops something.
Let's not go that far.
Good stuff.
Is it a any digital one, Ripley, you're wearing, or one of the aerospace? Which one are you wearing?
No, the one I have, like mid 2000s
The Colt?
Chronomat Evo. No, the Chronomat Evo. Yeah,
Oh,
properly
There was a
and
period they had
appropriately
like
sized
8
for my
watches
wrist.
that all looked the same. The Colt, the Avenger, the this, and that. Like
Steelfish.
all them apart.
yeah, yeah.
Good stuff. Well, do tune in to this show's video version. It will appear somewhere at some point. Do check out a blog to watch YouTube channel for the live show we did last Friday, where we rated and ranked all the best and worst watches so far of the year. Something we might repeat again in a month or so's time. But other than that, it's goodbye from me and goodbye from all of them. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.